Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. We're so excited to have Stacy Mayer here with us today. We're going to be talking about how to land those opportunities to meet people, talk to people, how to network, how to get out of that application pile that is just keeping you in crazy zone. Because we know from the reviews that we do with people and the data we get from you all that being ghosted or applying into the abyss is a big problem. And so Stacy's got some great ideas about how we can maneuver around that. And as we get started here, I want to just basically introduce Stacy. I've known Stacy for 5 years, something like that.
Yeah, 2020 is always a good marker, right? It's like I remember joining Eleanor's program right before COVID, right? So it's got to be
Yeah.
around that time, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And it was and I was a business coach for a while, and Stacy, you were one of my first clients through Eleanor's team, I recall, and I was so excited to get to meet you, and you're just amazing. The work you've been doing over the last 5 years. You've got to get to know Stacy. Please follow her on LinkedIn, follow her podcast, get her book, Promotions Made Easy. Just the work she's doing with women in corporate America is massive, and you work across the globe. You have clients, so
Mhm.
but if you're in a Fortune 200, a Fortune 500 company, Stacy really knows what she's talking about with how to position yourself for those conversations so that you can do what you're here on this planet to do, right, Stacy? I
Yes,
could go on introducing
exactly.
you, but please let me let you talk about yourself. Please give us an introduction.
Amazing. Thank you, Anne Marie, for putting my details in the chat as well. I appreciate that. I invite everybody to follow me on LinkedIn and also say hi. I'm in my direct messages a lot more lately, and that's some of what we're going to talk about today is ways that we can use DMs on LinkedIn to really make some strong connections with people. Um, so let's go back in time a little bit in terms of my introduction. I'm an executive coach and a promotion strategist. And what that means is that I help women get promoted specifically from that director to VP level, that gap, that leap that happens at that level. And, I started out my business having worked in women's leadership and helping women, and I realized that their badassery was not the problem, right? So every woman I met through the women's leadership group that I worked for was a corporate badass, like really like profound, right? And you know this, Kate, like everybody you work with is so good, right? And then on
Mhm.
paper or how we're presenting ourselves or right, are we getting these opportunities? And so I went out on a mission to say, okay, well, let's take these corporate badasses and get them promoted to the C-suite. That's how we're going to change the leadership table. And in my first 6 months in business, using practices that were, built by men essentially, and like the words that I was like interviewing these men of how they got where they were. And I was like, my clients aren't speaking like this, right? They're not communicating like this. Now, since then, I've figured out how to do it on our terms, so to speak, right? To not turn into more like a man, but to realize some of those traits and things that we're doing that are holding us back from getting those senior executive titles, right? And then also having success, right? Once we get there. I mean, that's the biggest thing. We don't, in California where I live, we have women on board laws, right? And then these women
Mm,
get on boards and they have no voice. So that's not what I'm interested in doing.
right.
I'm interested in getting women to those seats and actually having power and influence once they get there. And so a lot of my interview strategies are built around that as well, right? So we're like, not just get the job, right? We can get the job, we can manipulate our resume in a way that works or whatever and like talk a good talk, but as women, we want to be successful, right? We want that job to last. We want to have that voice as well. I think that's the work that you do at Get Her Hired too, is helping women tell the true story of really who they are. And so also as part of this process of getting promoted, my women are inevitably interviewing all the time. So so I
Yes,
work with a
100%.
lot of
That
women to
is
get an interview. Yeah,
really always be interviewing.
exactly, exactly.
so brilliant. And Stacy, yeah, I mean, there's this performative nature to some of the laws that are out there that are kind of
Mhm.
like, we'll let you come sit on our board, but then you don't have a voice. You can't actually contribute in the way that we want
Mhm.
to. And so the work again that you're doing to move this beyond just the initial opportunity, right? So there's the resume gets you in, the interview gets you an opportunity to talk to
Yeah.
people. But then how are you really showing up and how do you believe in yourself as you do that?
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
just this morning, I was talking with a brilliant person who happens to have a law degree, happens to have 20 years experience, happens to want to be pivoting out of her area. And she has been leading at an incredibly high level for many years and said to me, I saw on this job description that they needed someone who could manage these programs. And she said to me, I'm not sure I can manage a program because I've always had teams to do that for me.
Mhm.
And I said, okay, this isn't a resume problem. This isn't a LinkedIn problem. This is how you see yourself is a problem
Mhm.
and how you
Yeah.
talk about yourself is a problem. Not a problem, it's just limiting. I'll put it that way.
Yeah,
It's
and I believe that they go hand in hand, right? Because if you can, there's a lot of shift, especially in women's leadership, to be like, imposter syndrome, and if we can just talk a better talk or believe in ourselves. But then there's the assets, right? Our resume, our LinkedIn profile is not
yeah,
matching that, right? And so we're constantly, and this is, goes back to this always be interviewing, always be like working on our assets, so to speak, and be making sure that both on paper and energetically that we're presenting ourselves in this, again, I'll just say corporate badass way, right?
yeah.
So in the way that is
Thanks,
truly
Stacy.
actually much closer to our authentic selves.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, before I want to ask the community here some questions. So, and if anyone does have questions, you can put them in the Q&A. You can use the chat. Thanks, Anne Marie, for getting that started over there in the thread. And every question will be anonymous. We're not going to say your name. So you can ask all your dumb questions that are usually actually the most important ones. Um, okay, so tell everyone, Stacy, about the different things that you're working on, because I know you have your leadership table, you've got the podcast, you've got some different ways that people are working with you. Tell us a little bit about the work you do.
Well, so from a product standpoint, I work with women in a group called a Leadership Table Mastermind. And then we have a Jumpstart program, which is essentially taking the work inside of my book, Promotions Made Easy, and turning it into practicality, right? So it's one-on-one coaching and being able to put that into action. And one thing that I will say, which is it's been quite a journey in 2025, but there's a huge shift in my leadership table that over 60% of the women are unemployed. And I say that just with like pure
Out of here.
honesty. Yeah, and it's not, it's like it's really actually a very humbling situation where we have this group of VP level and above women that are kind of okay with it. And what I mean by that is like, oh, next, right? Like every single one of them. There's another woman, she was always be interviewing for 6 months. So at the point of unemployment, she had something lined up for 2 months later, right? So it's like in the conversations that we're having are so empowered. And frequently I get told like, hey, you're showing me how to be that executive leader even in my job search, right? And so that's the work that we're doing. We're also creating some consultants, right? Some people who are going out on their own, venturing out, right?
Absolutely.
Changing,
Yeah.
jobs and stuff like that. And it's really taken a turn and it's been kind of amazing, right? To watch like how can we be really empowered in this type of situation. So you'll hear on my podcast, which is Women Changing Leadership, that I do talk a lot more about I call it more like less the job search process, but like the offers, job offers, right? And I think that mindset switch is really important, which I can talk about today.
My
Um,
gosh. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just how to stay in that place of empowerment, even when, oh, I had a woman who got hired and 3 months later laid off. So that happened. That happened
Happens.
in October. So this is happening for people, right? It's there's ebb and flow. And I think, the only thing that we can change or whatever change is inevitable kind of idea, right? Like this is the thing that's constant in the world. And the more that we can embrace that and really understand that and know that our job is to find the impact, right? Find the place that we want to be at and also gives us the income, the freedom, the influence, whatever it is that you want in your life.
Beautiful. Thank you for bringing up that, the makeup of your leadership table has more than half of the people are looking for a role right now. And I think sometimes the people we work with can feel very alone,
Hmm.
especially at that higher level. There's like the shame or guilt that can come along with having been laid off. Or, and P.S., it's not your fault that that happened. And we could talk about that even. I'm sure Stacy can talk a
Yeah.
lot about that. But it's good to know that there's a group like you are leading that has that type of makeup. Because again, yeah, if anyone on this is watching this and is unemployed and is feeling like, oh my God, I'm such a failure, you're at that VP level, please call Stacy, get in her leadership
Yeah.
table because I guarantee people that work with Stacy are having more joy and more confidence and more just calm and
Hmm.
energy in their life, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Thanks for mentioning that. I'm going to launch a few questions here to the group, Stacy, and this is just to get a feel for who's in the room right now because we really want to honor and respect all of you who've showed up here live today. And so while we've got like things we can talk about, we want to make sure we're talking about the things that matter to the people in the room right now. So our first question, and again, we're talking about, our job search and job applications and how we're going about this. So we're curious to hear for those of you in the room today, how are you currently applying for jobs most of the time? Are you applying online? Are you getting referrals? Are recruiters reaching out? Or maybe you're not applying a lot right now. So, overarchingly, we are getting most of the answers coming in at applying online. Over half of the people here are relying on online applications, and then about 30% are using their referrals and networking. Okay, so I'm just going to make a note. Where did my pencil go? Okay, one second. Oh, I put all the pencils away. Hang on. I'm in my new office. I'm in my new office. So here we go. Okay, so it's now 60% of the people are doing online applications and 30% are using their networks for the most part. Do you find that to be true when you first start talking with people um,
Well,
in,
I would say, how do I get hired? I get hired because they've sent out 20 applications and no response. So, yeah,
yeah,
I think it's in
yeah.
the beginning, but as
Mhm.
you'll hear me talk about today, I don't spend a lot of time talking about applying online like ever. So when people hire me, they're applying online, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yes,
It's
it
not
does.
my solution. It's not my
Right.
solution, but it's what happens. Yeah.
Question, how many are you submitting before hearing back? So a lot of people are hearing back, it sounds like. Most so okay, okay. Most people are hearing back when they're submitting applications, so that's
Nice.
good. All right. Um, let's look at, I want to know right now, for you who are in the room, what is the most frustrating part of the job search for you? Is it getting interviews but no offers? I hear that a lot. Like, I'm down, it's
Mhm.
down to two choices and I'm not picked. That is something
Mhm.
I hear a lot.
Mhm.
Um, we're seeing here, most people are saying standing out among hundreds of candidates. That is by far 75% of the room is saying they need to stand out amongst hundreds of candidates. Okay. And I know I've got things I talk about with that, and I know you do too. 78% of the people are saying that now. Okay. So standing out, and that is a big thing. And part of the whole process, how Stacy even mentioned, like how we even start this process will help you stand out or not help you stand out. Okay. Um, this is an interesting one. Have you ever landed a role without applying online? So let's say you never applied, but you got like a shoulder tap or an intro, and that's happened for you. And you never even filled out a frickin' application. That's happened to me for promotions, for sure.
Good.
And yeah, and then it's happened for me a couple of times with jobs, with recruiters coming to me, for example. Okay, so we're seeing that some people have landed roles. About 67% of the people in the room have landed roles without applying. And about 30% are saying no, that they'd love to have that in their life. Um, okay, here's a great one. This is about networking confidence. So, how confident are you in networking for job opportunities? And Stacy, I might, as we get answers here, pause here. Tell us
Like,
what you think
yeah.
about networking. Like, just
Well,
let,
okay, so I'll just give this is I have a specific process called 15-minute ally meetings. And essentially what we're doing is we're building allies, not networking, right? And there's a huge difference from getting somebody to do the work for you, which is like basically hire you, bring you in for a job, recommend you, all of that influential behavior is very different than networking. Right. So it's like easy to make friends. It's easy to meet people. It's easy to like get other people like to know, but can feel very harder or like a lot harder to actually influence behavior. And so I think while I'm going to talk about it, it's all about your network, how you're using and how you're networking and to actually influence behavior is the key difference between
yeah.
actually getting somebody to bring you in and work on their team.
So Stacy, um, with networking, what do you find people's biggest hangup is? Because here's what I hear from people is that they think it's sales pitchy, they think it's awkward, they really hate the idea of having to talk about themselves. Those are some of the things I hear. What do you hear?
So well, the biggest thing, and this is not what I hear all of those words, right? So there's a difference between my direction and the words that I hear. So that's the words that I hear. And then I tend to swim in totally different lanes. Like my daughter's taking swim lessons right now. They have an indoor pool and an outdoor pool, and my lane is like somewhere over in the park, right? Like I just like, instead of necessarily we're solving this problem of pitching and talking about ourselves and sounding salesy, but really what we're doing is we're creating our own lane. So the number one thing that I think people have problem with in networking is they're going too low. So it's really comfortable to network with somebody who's at your peer level. And it feels more intimidating to network with an executive, like a CEO. So I'm always like, how many CEOs do you know? Like, really, like, how many CEOs do you know? And let's get to know those people. And those are the people that have the job opportunities and have can actually influence behavior. And so I think if you just start focusing a little differently, what you're going to find is those executives don't have time to hear your pitch. So you can't pitch a CEO. Like, why would you go into a conversation with a CEO and be like, so I'm looking for a job? No. So you show up differently. The whole thing gets easier. You're swimming in your own lane. It feels great. Freestyle. Everything's coming together, right? So,
Yeah, thank you for that. And that is such great advice on a much different level because there's the practicality of it that a lot of people are concerned about. But what you were talking about is just reframing the whole thing. Like, what am I doing here? What's the purpose? Why am I having this conversation? And what is it about? And what's the end goal? And thinking about the other person as well. And yeah. going higher. So networking too low. I love that, Stacy. Thank you. Thank you so much. I've got one more question I'm going to launch in the poll questions here. And then we're going to move into Q&A and chatting through this. So, when you think about your dream job, what do you think your biggest barrier is? So we're getting some answers coming in here. A lot of people are saying access to the right people is their
Mm.
biggest barrier. Um, this is great. And then prove access to people and then proving my value beyond my resume. There's someone on the call that says they would like to select all the options. Okay, so there's barriers for people here. The two most important ones being access to the right people. And then once you have that access, proving your value beyond your resume. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in those questions. It really helps us get a feel for who's in the room. So, Stacy, based on what you're seeing here, tell us your insights on what's happening and what you might advise.
So, today's conversation is about how to get that access. So essentially, it is yes, absolutely intentionally knowing that you're going too low, right? Like we just talked about. And then if you know that, then you ask yourself, okay, but how do I get access to the CEOs and the C-suite
Yes,
executives?
yes,
And then
yes.
how do I communicate with them? And what do they want to hear? And this is where literally I spend all of my time and energy. And it works very well for promotions and for interviewing at the executive level, right? It's all the same, right? And I also want to caveat this with, I definitely work with women at that director to VP level or above. And if anybody here who's listening is sort of more at that senior manager or individual contributor, like trying to figure out how to kind of break into this, the good news is that the earlier you do these strategies, the better off you're going to be for the rest of your career. So that's when you start doing skip level promotions. I have people, their most recent job was at the director level, but they're getting hired in at VP. So you can do this work, but you're going to hear me talking a lot higher level. So like literally the job description of a VP level or above. How do we speak to the vision? How do we talk about things in a higher level way? What matters to the organization? And that's a lot of how you're interviewing as well. So that's a big thing to note. And I know with you too, you're creating these executive level resumes that really look and feel like that executive level, even if they're at that director level or somewhere in between. So um,
Yeah.
yeah. So do you want me to kind of like dive into this process or,
Yeah, let's talk about this. So how do we like
how do we
stop
do this?
lying? The Financial Times, just I'll say this, the Financial Times this morning or today, I suppose, and it gets published in England, so it's much earlier today, just talked about how applications are coming in at 28% higher than year over year from last year. So 28% higher number of applications because AI is allowing more people to apply
Oh,
for more,
yeah, do it
right?
faster. Yeah, yeah.
And then with that, though, the human side of it is that people who are trying to parse those applications have a really hard time because there's very little differentiating them. And so if you want to stay stuck in apply mode, you can jump off the call right now.
Yeah, and actually, so first of all, Anne Marie, I have a download that explains my second degree connection approach, which is essentially what I'm going to launch into now, is how do we
Yes.
get that access, those people, right? And so that's stacymayer.com/invites, stacymayer.com/invites, and if you need me to post it too, but I think you guys are amazing.
Got it. Yeah.
So first things first, do we want like as our end goal to apply for jobs? Or do we want an offer? Do we want to apply for jobs or do we want an offer? If you're spending 90% of your time applying for jobs, your goal is to apply for jobs. That's it. Like, that's
What?
it. If you want an offer, You're talking to people, right? You're communicating, you're having conversations, you're practicing your pitch with like real people, right? And so this is like even if you just walk away from here and you're like, okay, when I'm applying for jobs here, am I applying? And that's like, okay, I sent out 10 applications today, success. Or I had a couple, just a couple or one meaty conversation that's going to lead me to another introduction, right? So it's like think reverse engineer your goals and say, okay, what's going to get me closer to that? Now,
Yeah.
to Kate's point, we gotta apply for jobs. We have to have our assets in order. We have to have a good resume. People are looking at your LinkedIn profile all the time. So stop like being silly about it and be like, but I don't want to. No, get it done. But it should only take 10% of your time, right? So when you're thinking about your job search and how you're spending your time, like think about the percentages, right? Am I applying online? And the reason why I want you to apply online is because you have to be ready. So, though when I'm working with clients, their first conversation is leading to an interview. Their first conversation is leading to a send me your resume. And if it ain't
Yeah.
ready, it's not ready, right? Like that's
Yeah.
not okay, right? You can't be at that level and not have your stuff. Like you can't wait a week to send your resume to that person. That door is only open for a short amount of time. So if you're going to lean in and network and do this stuff, know how to apply online, know how to answer those questions, know how you're going to do all of that. But are you looking for an offer, right? Like we talked about, I want to have success when I get my job. I want to have a voice when I get my job. So guess what? You have to have a voice when you apply. Like, if you look at
Yes.
I know.
Yeah.
Right. And the other piece is that you don't want like so there's this like proving energy, right, that happens when that women hate. We hate it so much. Was like I get the job and then I just constantly have to prove myself. I'm constantly having to talk about my work and my ROI and I have to talk about like it's up to my performance review whether I got promoted or they say take a project or you get promoted. But if you want to have value, like real value at your organization, then you're not proving yourself, right? You're showing up as a leader who already is proven, right? You're starting from this place. And so there's this idea of how you interview is the job that you get, right? So when you're interviewing by application and resume alone, then you're going to get pulled in for jobs that are like that sort of energy, right? Like she checked a bunch of boxes. And I'm not a check a bunch of boxes type girl, right? Like I want to keep going right from there. So that's a step number one. Ask yourself, are you applying for jobs? Is that your goal or is your goal to get an offer, right? If your goal is to get an offer, then what? Then what do I do to get that offer? So that's the first thing. Should I keep going?
But if, yeah, well, let's pause. I don't know if there are any
Yeah, yeah,
questions
yeah, yeah.
that might be coming in. And if you are here live, you can use the Q&A function, or you can post your question in the chat. Either way, we'll keep it anonymous. So please, if you want to use that, we don't have any questions just yet, but please use that out here. This is why we've got Stacy here, and this is why we bring experts to you. Stacy, that's amazing. So my takeaway with what you just shared there is really thinking through what the heck am I doing and why?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if we're just applying or if we're ticking boxes, that there's like a safety in that for a lot of people. I was talking with a client yesterday who said, it'd be safe for me to get a lateral move in my next role. And so we talked a lot about, well, does she want actual ability to call the shots, or does she want to respond to other people's, telling her what to do?
Yeah,
And
exactly. What's
yeah.
safe? Yeah.
And so yeah, it's interesting that just thinking through these things, like what are we really doing here? What are we really saying? Because the energy
And
you're putting out there is what you're getting back.
And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people think that we're pulling the wool over someone's eyes. So, like, let's say we network very effectively and we use the CEO to get a job, right? I think it's easy to think that we convinced that CEO, because that's where that imposter syndrome kicks in. Maybe I'm not ready. I'm sorry, but there's very few CEOs out there that can be convinced. Like you can't fake it that much, right? And so it's really interesting that we think somehow that we have that much power that we just completely brainwashed this person into believing that we were as great as we were. The truth is, we actually were that great. And all we did is step into the energy of that greatness, and we showed up with that level of confidence that that CEO was waiting for. Now, what we have to do, and this is why the women in the leadership table mastermind have worked with me through multiple promotions, multiple years, and multiple. They all have executive coaches, right? It's because now we have to kind of keep showing up, right? We're in that job, and we just, we're sort of like, when I don't feel like enough, how do I bring it, right? Like all of these, how do I make these decisions? But that's okay. Every executive has a coach. Like it's fine, right? So all of that will work itself out if you put yourself in the right rooms. And that's what the second degree connection process that's listed in the downloadable PDF talks about is like getting in front of those important people who actually make hiring decisions.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
It looks like we had a question come in for you, Stacy. I've applied for a job I'm very interested in. I know the name of the hiring manager, but I'm running into dead ends getting a warm intro. I want to reach out directly by LinkedIn or email, but I don't know the words to say.
Awesome. So the first things first, which is I mean, I talk about this all the time. This is the practicality. This is like the process, right? So the first thing that you're going to do is you're just going to do a LinkedIn connection. Some people think you have to write one sentence. I don't necessarily even think you have to write one sentence. I think you just make a LinkedIn connection. The hard part, and we in the mastermind we call it sleuthing, is we're just like trying to find who the hiring manager is. So you already got them, right? Like I'd say yesterday, do the LinkedIn connection request. What that does is it puts them on your profile. So now they're following you. Now they're looking at you. Even if they don't even accept the request, they looked at you, right? Like something happens there, right? So just don't overthink it. Just get it out there. And then you're going to do something else, right? Like, hey, and anything but say I applied for the job. Don't say I applied for the job. Don't say I applied for the job. Don't say I applied for the job. Say, hey, been looking at your company, noticing a lot of opportunities coming up. I'd be interested in speaking for 15 minutes about what's on deck, like what you're working on, right? Same. You apply for the job, you still apply for the job, but now you can connect with them that way, right? So that's just a simple direct message approach. Now, again, it may or may not work specifically or even play out exactly as you have planned, but we just keep going. I'm not a one and done type person, like, oh, that didn't work. Because I know looked at your profile. I know there's somebody else at the company that now you're going to do the same thing with, connect with them, right? And then what happens is your energy's in the right place. It's in that finding an offer energy, and you're going to see another company pop up, right? So you're proactively, this is a way better approach, and you can imagine that 10 minutes you took to do that is going to put you in a better spot, than what you did yesterday, which was just applying for a bunch of jobs and then looking at the 100 or 1,000 applications ahead of you and feeling bad, right? So we're putting ourselves in the right place. So hopefully that's a good start for you on how to email them, how to direct message them, and then perhaps in my second degree connections, I might be able to touch on some of the things like how do you get the warm introduction? And you can also ask a follow-up question too if you have one.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Thank you, Stacy. That's really helpful. And we do at Get Her Hired have scripts as well for getting these types of conversations going. But please check out Stacy's link that Anne Marie posted earlier to check those out. And if you've got more questions, please bring them in. This is why we have Stacy here, is to chat with us about this today. So you've been doing this work, Stacy, for quite a long time. This is, not really new to you. Um, Tell us a little bit about what patterns you're seeing. Well, I guess you really have talked about those patterns already of women getting stuck in that application pile. Um, And what are they misunderstanding about hiring decisions?
Well, so okay, we're looking at offers. Offers come through second degree connections. This is like actually really true, right? So if you think about it, what is the highest percentage? And I think there could be like data on this, but there's what is the highest percentage of people? And usually it's somebody introduced me to somebody who knows somebody, right? Like that's the idea. It's a web, right? The chances of you getting somebody that you know really well to have an opportunity available in that moment that fits you perfectly is like next to none, right? Like you're playing a losing game. But the chance of that person who really likes you a lot and wants to vouch for you and really desperately wants to help you, knowing somebody who, or knowing 10 people who might have a job opportunity for you is like way greater, right? So a lot of times I look at these statistics and I'm just asking myself, like, how do people get offered? Like, really, like, what do I think the percentages are and like what's happening over and over again? Do I have people in the mastermind that get offers from cold applying? Like, absolutely, right? Like, even I had a woman who's a senior vice president who got a job offer after cold applying, right? And most of the time, what we're doing is we're figuring out how to get somebody to introduce us to somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, right? Like that's, and at those right levels that are actually hiring, right? And so knowing that second degree connections, like literally just knowing that, right? Walk away. Am I looking for offers? Am I actually trying to get second degree connections, or am I spending all my energy in terms of networking on
Right.
first degree connections, right? And so a second degree connection isn't the stranger you met at the networking event. That's like a 0.5 degree connection, right? You don't know them, right? I'm talking about a second degree connection that's actually connected to a first degree connection, right?
Mhm.
And you
Mhm.
can also think about like executives and like, the part of you that goes, oh, how did they get where they are? Oh, it's they went to the right school. They know somebody who knows somebody. Hello. It's
Yeah.
about they knew somebody who knew somebody. So I want you to be the person who knows somebody who knows somebody. It's really rewarding when it works out. It's
Yeah,
like,
you know, it's really true. I was talking about the 2026 job market last week, and really what we see too for the clients who are getting those interviews and having those conversations and getting offers, um, it's it's moving beyond what we think as women. I think as women, frequently, we can get in this position where we check the boxes, we're careful about how we approach things and do things. And then there's also this notion that, there should be more equity in hiring, and people talk about equity in hiring. But the truth, the truth is, it's still the old boys network with different shoulder pads, okay? Because it's still very much about connecting and knowing people and being out there and being in front of people. Now, the entitlement, depending on your industry, is a little bit different. So there's always going to be entitlement and connection through people who went to your college, or people who are at your club, or people who go golfing or pickleballing with you, or whatever you're into. But there is actual space and opportunity beyond that if you don't have that kind of entitlement. And this is like the stepping into that we need to do, and not deny that. I think a lot of women would prefer that we don't have to make those connections and build those relationships, that it should be something more merit based, which is keeping women, I think, much smaller. And so we've got to get out there and be doing the things you're talking about, Stacy.
yeah. And if we really want to change, if we want to see change, get yourself into a position to create change. And so you can be in a lower level position talking about, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have entitlement? Or you can get yourself in a higher level position and create an
Yeah.
opportunity, right? And you want to make sure that you're getting the job offer that has that ability to have your voice, right? So like if you somehow pulled the wool over the CEO's eyes to get, get the job offer, and then he doesn't like you, and then you're like put in a box and no one wants to talk to you, and you like have to prove yourself over and over again, and and then you quit, right? Like that's not helpful. And so understanding that this idea of the other thing is that we all have entitlement. Like literally, like we all know something. This is not extroversion. This isn't going to giant networking events. These are one-on-one conversations. And I have a woman in Silicon Valley, right? So like, it's all that Palo Alto, most affluent, everybody, like the people in Scouts know everybody who knows everybody. And do you know she wasn't even using that network, right? From the same things like, well, I
Yeah.
don't want to ask, like, that guy's really important, right? And I was like, and sometimes I just say, that old term, like your Rolodex, like, this is kind of cool when you go up to this like really important guy who you see in Scouts all the time, and you're like, hey, I could use some of your connections right now or your Rolodex. They love it. Oh, yeah, let me make a connection for
Yeah.
you,
How can I
right?
help you?
How
Yeah.
can I
Yeah.
help you, right? And so it certainly doesn't make it any less valuable once you get there. But the other piece, and this is when I talk about people working with me for like over 5 years, is because politics is a part of executive leadership, unfortunately, and playing the game. And so, if we can get you in a position that you actually like, and you actually like your boss, and you actually want to have a voice at that company, then you're really like 10 times like off to the races, because now you'll continue having that voice and continue, but you're going to have to figure this out, what we're talking about. Like if you want to be in the C-suite, and a lot of you don't, that's fine. You just want a job, and that's really great. Like that's great, and we can help you do that too. But I'm talking about like that change, right? If we really want to institute that level of change. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. We had a question come in around second degree connections. Can you talk about what that really looks like in detail here, Stacy, and why they're
Yeah,
important?
yeah, yeah.
You mentioned a little bit, but
Yeah. So, okay. So we already know. I mean, you can just make it up, but think about it. I just asked myself, like, think about it. Do you think that it's easier to get a first degree connection that happens to be hiring in that moment, or a second degree connection to get a job offer, right? Like, okay,
yeah.
let's go with that, right? So are second degree connections better, quote unquote? The answer is yes, because the reason that we're not reaching out to our first degree connections is because of how important they are to us, right? That person is like also a really great friend, or like just a really cool person, and I don't want to ask them for a job and then I find foolish, or I don't get it, or he goes out on a limb for me, right? And it doesn't work out, right? Like that is so terrifying to women, men, whoever you are, right? Like we just hate burning bridges, and we know that relationships are important. But if you're going with for second degree connections, you're actually letting your first degree connection off the hook. So you're
Ah,
making this person your friend. And so this goes into, which is also in my downloadable PDF, is it goes into how we're asking them to make the introduction. So here's the beauty of it. The script, which is in the PDF, is can you introduce me to somebody, like you, somebody who's a VP, or somebody else at this company, blah, really light, whether they're hiring or not. Whether they're hiring or not. So you're not giving your first degree connection homework. Your first degree connection doesn't have to go out on a limb, doesn't have to figure out who's hiring, doesn't have to know if you're a good fit. You never have to send your pitch deck to your first degree connection to then forward it on to a second degree connection. You're just saying, hey, do you know somebody who's as cool as you? Right? Like
yeah.
anybody at that executive level who you can introduce me to, or at this
Yeah.
company, do you know anybody at Gilead, right? Like, can you introduce me, right? That's it. And you're not in your division, not in your like place. And then what you're going to do is you're going to sort of piggyback on those second degree connections. And this is not like playing the long game. This happens super fast, right? Like meaning it can sound so light that you're like, oh my God, but I need a job, so I have to tell them I need a job, right? That's not really how it works. Like like dating, right? You can find the person, the love of your life overnight, right? Like literally just one date. And then all of a sudden it all clicked, right? It's not like it has to take a long time, but we also kind of have to play it cool. And it keeps those relationships alive because those first degree connections, right? And they like to open their Rolodex. They like to make those connections, especially if you make it easy for them. We think making it easy for them is to send them the pitch deck, right? And to say, here, this is how I want you to introduce me. That doesn't. Just say, hey,
Mhm.
just say, introduce me and I'll take it from there. Kate, you and I do this all the time. We just
Yes.
introduce each other to people. We don't like say, oh, you have to talk to the da, 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 right? Like it's like, just
Right. I'm like,
talk to
hey,
this
Stacey,
person.
you got to meet this person. Check them
Yes,
out. They're really
thank
cool. You got to
you.
talk to them.
Exactly. And when people are at that higher level, you don't have to explain yourself anyway. Somebody just talks to you, right? Like this doesn't need a whole lot of explanation. And if you're not worried about whether they're hiring or not, you don't need that. But I will tell you, now let's go full circle. They're looking at your resume and they're looking at your LinkedIn profile. So they're still looking at it. You just don't, you're just being a little bit stealthier about how you're connecting with them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Thank you, Stacy. We got a question. You know, before we go on to this question, I think that there's a lot of the time that people just don't know how to have that kind of normal conversation with people. And we had a question that came in here, like, what is a belief that's holding us back from having this kind of just normal conversation, whether someone's hiring or not? What's a belief that you find?
I did a talk at Haas Business School. I live in Berkeley, and this is at Cal. And I really saw it in this 19-year-old woman, right? And I was like, schedule like, I don't know, a very important person, like reach out to a professor. And she goes, no, that's not possible. And I was like, oh, and I could see it really in that because in school, and you've got this 50-year-old seasoned tenured professor and you at 19, I don't belong. And so I spend a lot of time coaching women on belonging, like you belong, like why not? And especially seeing this woman, like it made my eyes water. And I said, excuse me, but who are you not to reach out to them? Like they control their calendar, they control who they talk to, they control what they do. But why do you not matter, like as a human, right? And we're trying to
Ooh,
change the leadership table, right? Like we're trying to create more humanity in leadership. So you show up as mattering. You matter. Your voice matters. You matter. You matter. You matter. It is okay, perfectly okay to reach out to somebody. And if you know that you're not actually giving your first degree connection homework or doing it wrong, then you feel more okay with it, right? Like you're like, what do I
mhm,
have to lose? Right. And so that's
mhm.
the energy that I want you to be in is like, I belong. Why not ask them to introduce me? It's so light, right? Like it's somebody that is cool like you, right? Like that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Thank you, Stacy. Yes, why don't
Why
you
not?
belong? Yes, why not? The worst that can happen, and this happens, is that people don't reply because people aren't always on LinkedIn. That's the truth. And this is why we reach out to multiple people. And like you're saying, it's more than one. And
Right.
why not go for that higher level? And even if you don't hear back from people, again, just in the same notion you were sharing earlier, we get to be the change, right? And so if someone reaches out to you on LinkedIn, you better write back, be that person. Don't be the ghost person,
Yeah.
because at some point you're going to have that opportunity too. We had a question. You briefly mentioned a pitch deck. I know one of the things we talk about at Get Her Hired is having an executive brief ready.
Mhm.
And that executive brief being a very high level overview on one page of what you're freaking great at,
Yeah.
what you've accomplished in the past, and what you're looking to accomplish in the future. The goal of using this is to let people get to know you very quickly and they can forward it and pass it around. When you mentioned earlier needing a pitch deck, we got a question that came in. What the heck is that? And do I need one?
Yeah, and it's very similar to that, right? So there's the homework. The homework is the assets, the homework is the executive briefing, the homework is knowing how you're going to answer the interview questions. Like all of this is so important, right? And sometimes, like when we're talking about that really high level executive, they might actually, this is also one of the tricks of executive leadership, is the person might say, send me this, and you don't have to. So you start to become this like miracle worker of reading between the lines of like knowing what it is that they actually want. So when somebody says like send me what you're looking for in a paragraph, sometimes it's true and sometimes it's not helpful because it gives them an excuse to think that they did the work for you. But really, what you want ultimately, and what's the point of the executive brief, is to get on the phone with this person. Like you want to actually just be able to talk to them. And so
Yeah.
sometimes the executive briefing, like just as a quick copy and paste, if that person is actually going to send it out, if that person is actually going to do what they say, but it's a really, when you get an email that's like that dense, it's an easy way to say no or just like ignore. But when you get an email which says, hey, can you talk to this person? They're pretty cool too. And I use this word cool, but I don't think I would ever actually write that. But like this idea, this conceptually cool people is that then the person goes, okay, let me hear what she's about, right? And then you're going to verbalize that executive summary or briefing over the phone and tell them what you're looking for. So, we
Yeah.
use it kind of
Yeah.
interchangeably, but I think just like you said, it can be a crutch to send out a bunch of resumes with no reply. It could be a crutch to just be like, forward this, forward this, forward this to no reply. Instead, really ask yourself, what's my goal? My goal is to get an offer. So that means I got to be bold and I got to get on the phone, right? And
Yeah.
I got to actually talk to this person.
I love that. Thank you, Stacy. I that being bold and getting out there and talking about yourself. I in the last quarter of the year last year, I was talking with a lot of people about using the same kind of mom energy, if you're a mom, that you would put into getting your kid in the last cool position at summer camp, right? So how much energy would you spend trying to get someone else something, right? Someone who you love, put that energy into yourself and go out there and get bold, bake the muffins, show up at the thing, write in a question, donate to a, these are things that can really help influence. And it's again that energy. If I want an offer, not just an interview, if I want an offer, not just them to read my resume, if I want an offer, what if I was doing this for a loved one, what would I do for them?
And I also want to redefine what bold is. So, if any
Thank
of you
you.
have ever exercised in your life, you know that getting to the gym is the hardest part, right? And then you do it. And I mean, maybe sometimes you push yourself too hard, but most of the time it feels really good, right? And you're so glad you did it. All you had to do is get to the gym. And when I look back at that getting to the gym, I don't think, wow, that was a bold move, right? Like, I think I got to the gym. I did it, right? It's like kind of like, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 2. I had to get up and go. And yes, it's hard. And yes, I have to do it again and again and again and again and again, but I feel good afterwards. So when you do this and you have that conversation, you go, oh my God, Stacy, I can't believe this happened. Now, I mean, I just literally woke up and my Slack channel was now I've got 3 interviews tomorrow. And it was like literally through one conversation, right? And so when you get that high, that exercise high, you're like, oh, maybe that wasn't so bold, right? Like it wasn't so hard. Yes, it's risky because nobody else is doing it, right? Like it's like you're like, look around, they're not all reaching out to executives and being like, talk to me, right?
Yeah.
And not a
Yeah.
lot, not everybody's applying for VP level roles either. But
Yeah.
that's you. That's just who you are. You belong. Like know that. And then just like set your alarm and go to exercise. Like do it. It'll feel better afterwards. It really does. It almost always feels better. And then, these conversations are so innocuous, meaning like they're just not that they're because if you set it up with like just like, hey, I want to connect, at most they just say it didn't go anywhere. Like, but they don't go, oh my God, now I'm screwed. Life is over. Everything is gonna backfire, right? Like usually it doesn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stacy, thank you so much. We're coming to the end of our time here. If anyone's got a burning desire question, get it in the chat real quick here. But as we're wrapping up, Stacy, can you leave us just what you just shared right now about this boldness was beautiful. And but could you leave us with one thought about skipping that application pile and landing more offers? If you could leave us with one thought about how we skip the pile, land more offers, what is that one thought? What would that be?
I'm going to go back to the beginning, which is that what is our goal, right? And a lot of times, people don't want to be in the C-suite because of all the bureaucracy that goes along with it. So figure out what your goal is. So is my goal to get really good at applying for jobs and then finally get a job? Or is my goal to change the leadership table? Like really I mean, and if you're not even like that big, you don't even have to be that big. My goal would be actually to have a job where I kind of like my boss and it feels pretty easy and I get included, right? Like maybe it's something like that. And if that's your goal, just take all of those words and reverse engineer it. Start including yourself now. Like just from the beginning in the interview, in the hiring process, everything. Include yourself, make your voice matter, remind yourself that your voice matters and that why not me, right? As you're applying, and then it will inevitably end up in a job where you're going to have that voice because the person's going to get you and they're going to like you and they're going to want you to be a part of their team. So that's the process, that's the end goal, and um, yeah, that's where we're headed.
Stacy, thank you so much. Anne Marie's going to put in the chat here again your LinkedIn profile. So please connect with Stacy. She's doing a live tomorrow.
Oh
You're probably
yeah.
going to hear what's that? What's the topic of that
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
Stacy?
So I have a live interview. I'm just going live on LinkedIn tomorrow so follow me at Stacy Mayer. And really this conversation is about once I get the job, right? So then how do I continue to have my voice heard and make those shifts? Beyond promotions, beyond the job offer, beyond like what is my 90-day plan? And sometimes that comes up in the interview process as well. So I'm going to start touching on what some of those concepts are so that you can bring some of that into your conversations as you're interviewing. So all you have to do is follow me on LinkedIn to get that invitation, and you'll see me go live tomorrow.
Fantastic. And then Anne-Marie, if you can drop her website in, if anyone is looking for coaching, if anyone is looking for a community where you could get Stacy's energy all the time, please follow her. Is your podcast still going,
Oh,
Stacy?
yeah. We just
Okay.
crossed over 300 episodes.
Get out of here.
I know, right? And let me tell you, I took a 5-month break.
Wow.
I still have 300 episodes. It's
You're
the
still
funniest
gonna
lesson in like when you need to stop, just stop. And then it was back again. I was very proud of myself for that, Kate. You would have appreciated that.
I love that. I love that, Stacy. Well,
Yeah. And
congratulations.
then download the stacymayer.com/invites as well. Just so that everybody kind of has this process and I have the templates and things in there.
Stacy, thank you so very much for taking time to chat with us today. We really appreciate it. And keep doing what you're doing. It's so important. The world needs your work. And I'm so grateful that we connected the 2020.
I know. Once
And
again.
that such a great boost for our audience here too at Get Her Hired. Thanks for your
Yeah.
collaboration. Have a
Thank you.
beautiful day. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.